So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about a couple of other example programs that relate to wrapping up the functional programming discussions that we were having last time. And then also we'll be starting to discuss some stream stuff. So we'll start with this example. So this is an example that's the EX6 example in my GitHub repository under the Java 8 folder. And this particular example shows how a Java Supplier interface can be used to print a default value if a key is not found in a map. And it also shows a little bit of how to use the Java optional class, which is a pretty cool class. It's very simple, and its purpose in life is to get around ever having to deal with dreaded null pointer exceptions ever again. So this is the implementation, or here's the code we're going to look at. We're going to start by making ourselves a hash map that associates beings with their personas. So I just have a couple of examples here. A demon is naughty, an angel is nice. We could make a wizard be wise, or we could make an orc be evil or something like that. Whatever you want to do to kind of fit into the world of science fiction and science fantasy. And then we're going to go ahead and create ourselves a particular kind of being. And it turns out this particular being is not in the map. So this is a demigod, right? Like Hercules, I suppose. And we're going to come along now and we're going to say, hey, being map, please give me back the result of looking up in the map the being I'm trying to find. In this case, the being is demigod. And of course, there is no being named demigod in the map. So we're going to get back a null reference. Well, as you all know, null references are sort of the root of all evil in many programming languages, Java being one of them. There's nil pointers in Pascal and null pointers in C++ and C and so on and so forth. And all of these things are problematic. So rather than ever having to deal with null pointers or null references, what we're going to do instead is we're going to take the results and we're going to use a factory method on the Java optional class called ofNullable. And what that does is it takes whatever you pass it and it creates an optional. If it's a non-null value, the optional will have a present value, which will be whatever you pass it in the constructor. However, if it's a null value, then ofNullable will create an empty optional. And that empty optional will then be used here to keep track of the disposition. So disposition is an optional to a string, and it will either have a value that's present or it'll be empty. And then down here, we're going to use it as follows. We're going to print out disposition of the being is going to be disposition or else. And if disposition has a present value, it'll return that value. Like if we looked up what's the being angel, it would come back with a disposition of nice. But because we used demigod, which isn't found, it'll be empty. And so or else will get called. And what or else is passed is unknown. And that's basically going to be returning it in that particular way. So that's going to come back in this way. You could also say or else get, and then you could put in a supplier, which would look like this. And so what would happen in that case would be that or else get will go ahead and evaluate the supplier that's passed in, which in this case will return the string unknown. So you can either use or else or else get. Or else will just return the value. Or else get will call the get method on a supplier, which in this case is just going to return the unknown string. So that's a very simple example that illustrates the use of supplier lambdas and optionals in the context of modern Java.